Hey folks, it's Nick with Bootstrap Farmer, and I've got a confession to make at the end of this video. Today we're looking at 5 warning signs that you may need to get new greenhouse plastic. Greenhouse plastic is purpose-built to let just the right amount of sunlight in. However, over time, wear and tear, dirt, dust, and the eventual breakdown of all plastics means that you're going to have to replace your hoop house plastic every 6 to 9 years. And during the course of your everyday farm chores, it's really easy to walk past a problem every single day. It becomes part of your background. So I want to ask you, when's the last time you purposefully stopped and took a look at every single inch of your greenhouse plastic to see how it's actually doing? So the first sign that you may need to replace greenhouse plastic, and probably the most obvious, is that you're going to have tears inside of the plastic. Now, one of the jokes that we always have when we go install any kind of greenhouse plastic is sometimes during the build, no matter how careful you are, you always seem to get a tear or two. That's why greenhouse repair tape is so invaluable, especially day one. Having that greenhouse repair tape handy means that you can fix problems as they come up. Not fixing those tears along the way means that they're going to get bigger over time, you're going to forget about them, and one little tear can become a very big problem with a windstorm, or a dog bumping up against it, or any other accident in which that plastic is pushed even just a little bit. The way I would like for you to take a look at that plastic when it does come time to do this monitoring that we're asking you to do is to visualize your hoop house in segments, that you're going to walk up and you're not going to look all at one time, and that you're just going to take a look at a very small percentage of the greenhouse plastic at any one time. So doors, are there any holes? In walls, are there any holes? That's top, bottom, side to side. And then you can go and do the same thing with the other end wall. And then, and only then, would you take a look at maybe the left side of the greenhouse, and you can even segment that by roll-up sides or from hip to base, from left to right. And don't be afraid to take the extra time to go, I'm going to look up and down, and now I'm going to look side to side. It's that grid pattern. It's the same way like a police detective unit would go out and search a field looking for the smallest of clues. That's your job as the farmer, is to look for the very smallest of holes, keep that repair tape with you, and fix it along as you go. And then you can take a look at from the hip to the top of the peak, go around and do the same size. Drones are so inexpensive right now. I know a lot of you own a drone, and even if you don't, you can usually pay a photographer, not very much these days because they're so prevalent, to fly a drone and help you inspect that roof line, that ridge line, that you maybe not be able to reach. I know a lot of roofing contractors use a drone to monitor the top of rooftops after a hailstorm or something comes by. So it's a good tool, keeps you off the ladder, but it still allows you to visually inspect your hoop house. Now, once you get done with that, I would do the same thing for the inside. Perspective is everything in the world at this point. And now that you've taken a look at the inside, you've trained your eyes over the last few minutes to take a look for the smallest hairs. And if you go on the inside, you're going to see things a whole different way. And I guarantee you that if your greenhouse plastic is more than 1 year, doing that outside visualization and then going on the inside and doing the same thing, you're likely to find another hole that you missed on the first round. It's a good double check. Make it a habit. Sign number 2 that you may need to replace your greenhouse plastic is the eventual buildup of dirt and grime on the film. I know some people that live in a particular wet area, they may develop a little mold or something like that. I know a lot of times if you're mowing and some of that grass gets thrown up against the greenhouse, sometimes that sticks and it just accumulates over the years. It's always a good practice to give a good wash down of your plastic at least once a year, twice if you can, because that eventual dust that settles, and think about if you leave your lawnmower or another piece of equipment underneath a shed and you don't mow for a couple of months and you go in to check it, there's that dirt and grime that you can put your finger on and visually see this dust that settles into the air. Same thing happens with your greenhouse. And even though there's an anti-dust protection on the greenhouse plastic the Bootstrap Farmer sells, and eventually that breaks down over the course of the lifetime, and you will start to develop that dirt layer. That dirt is restricting the amount of available daylight that you have available for your plants. So go ahead and wash it, but this prolonged year after year accumulation of dirt, grime, sometimes grease, depending on what's going on your farm, is eventually going to wear out your plastic. You can prolong the life of your plastic, but eventually that's going to be one of the layers that adds on to the reason that you're having to replace it. Warning sign number 3 that it may be time to replace your hoop house plastic is multiple patches, especially patches on top of patches. So I see this a lot in that Sometimes there's a tree next door or nearby and a branch falls. Next storm, a branch falls. And it's poking a hole and you're fixing it. And it's poking a hole and fixing it. And all of a sudden you have all these little perforated dings all about the same spot. Greenhouse repair tape is fantastic for fixing a hole. It's fantastic for fixing a big hole. But what you don't want is a tear and a tear and a tear and the eventual breakdown of this one spot. So one, I would have you trim that tree or whatever obstacle is causing the problem, perhaps put in a windbreak depending on what the situation is. If it's one of those things where, hey, the same guy keeps running a hoe or a rake inside of the plastic, maybe it's time to talk to that employee or maybe even yourself, because I know it's very easy to put a hole in plastic if you're really determined not to pay attention. So lawnmowers, throwing rocks, hole, 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 patch, 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 all of this is the eventual weakening breakdown of plastic, especially in the long term. Let's talk about that long term for a second. So greenhouse plastic has a 4-year warranty on the plastic. What does that tell me? It says that the manufacturer's warranty is comfortable giving 4-year because they know it's going to last 6 to 9 years. That's pretty much industry standard for how long it's expected for greenhouse plastic to last. But here's the kicker. These big guys, I'm talking about multiple 30 by 100 foot or larger greenhouses that have several dozen or even several hundred in some of the places we go to, it's worth it to them to replace their greenhouse plastic more often because it's letting more light in and it's doing the job the best that it can possibly be. And they're making enough money in the way that they run their business that they can afford to replace this. Market gardeners, we don't have that luxury. Hobbyists, we don't necessarily want to take it that far. So what that tells us is that we should feel comfortable purchasing the correct greenhouse plastic, knowing that we're going to get 6, possibly stretching it out to 9, and for some of you doing it 10 years. But dirt, dust, patches, holes, they're all adding up. Just like we talk about layers on a hoop house all adding up to the eventual outcome, this eventual degradation of this plastic, because of some of the things we're talking about here, it's not going to necessarily make it quicker. It's just another reason to go ahead and replace the plastic. And with tip number 4, here's my confession. We are in the business of making sure farmers look great. When we talk about selling our product, when we're highlighting one of our farmer partners, we want to show them in the very best possible light. And here's the thing from my side of being behind the camera, right? We go out to the farmer's place, they all say the same thing every single time. I got a mess over here, I got a pile of junk over there, the place looks terrible. Every single farm I have ever been to is absolutely beautiful. I love my job, I love the environment that we're in. But there's always a little something going on, right? And so in all these years, I failed to do my job and fully documenting every single farm. So the next 2 things I'm talking about, it's going to be brittleness, which is tip 4, and the yellowing of plastic, which is warning sign number 5. Honestly, I just never have taken pictures of that. Most of the time, I've never really seen the yellowing unless it's like a super old structure. And with that, I didn't feel like it was flattering enough to the farmer, so I didn't take a picture of it. And in that, I kind of failed everybody along the way. But if you have a house or a hoop house, or especially if you're trying to move one and that plastic is brittle and it's crumbling, maybe it was the wrong plastic that you bought over the years, maybe that eventual UV degradation took a hold of your plastic and made it crumbly and brittle, it's time to replace the plastic. So this is especially going to be on high wear and tear areas. Roll-up sides, maybe where the door is coming in and out. For sure, if you have a caterpillar tunnel and you're doing that weird bunching thing for some of you that have that kind of door, anytime that plastic is moving about all the time, a high pressure wind side, especially on the end walls where it's taking that wind load the most, these are areas that are going to be prone to that brittleness. So if that's happening, what's going to happen? Wear, tear, more holes, more patch tape, everything that we talked about in the prior warning signs, something you need to take a look at. Warning sign number 5, that yellowing. When you start to see the yellowing over time, that means that the eventual breakdown of the plastic is well underway. This is likely to happen in year 9, 10, for some of you, even more. And that means that the plastic is prone to multiple points of failure at that point. Anything left out in the sun, including a car, a house, unless it's properly maintained or painted, is eventually going to deteriorate, right? Well, we can't paint greenhouse plastic. That would defeat the purpose. Everything that you buy on the farm has a lifespan. All of us have a lifespan. The plants have a lifespan. If you're starting to yellow, please take a look and make sure that you're going to get rid of that before it starts shredding, and then you're picking up all that little plastic along the way. So in the first part of this video, I also talked about the fall being a good time to replace the plastic. It's my favorite time if you have to do it. Here's a couple things to think about. In the springtime, what's going to happen? You're going to be planting, you're going to be weeding, you're going to be fertilizing, you're going to be getting ready for market, you're going to be doing all of these things that you waited all winter whenever it was slow to do. And so while it's still fall and it's not super cold out and it's not super hot and the winds are not really this bad that time of year for a lot of us, get in front of everybody else that's waiting last minute to order the plastic. Oh my goodness, the frost is coming and now we got to get this thing, and 100 people called Bootstrap Farmer that day and the warehouse is cutting as quick as they can, and hopefully all the package delivery people are doing what they're supposed to do, but sometimes they don't. The package gets lost. Let's get ahead of that now. Let's go ahead and get the plastic in, and whenever the conditions are right. Also, around 70 degrees is the most ideal time to put that plastic on because it gives it time to stretch and flex and do all the things it needs to do to kind of settle in as you're pulling that plastic tight. So the fall, you're not as busy as you're going to be in the summertime. The frost is on the way, the winds are coming. It's time to protect your plants. Let's get it in. And look, you may not have to replace it, right? And you're not going to know unless you do what we talked about in that step 1, in which we diligently go and inspect that plastic. So I really encourage you, make a little sketch of your greenhouse on a piece of paper, go out and note the repairs that you may need to do. And look, if you have your repair tape with you and you have a little spray bottle to clean it, there's a blog link below that takes you step by step on how to take care of that plastic and get it repaired. Just do that as you go and then you're done with it. But if you notice a longer hole or something like that, just because you replace part of an end wall doesn't necessarily mean you have to replace every single thing. You may need a much smaller piece of plastic, but you're not going to know unless you go out and really, really decide, hey, is this time to do this or not? And if you see a piece of plastic that maybe it's too small or too big, call our tech team and see if they have any solutions for you. And look, speaking of calling the tech team, we have other greenhouse options than just the standard 6 mil plastic. We also have a high diffusion plastic, which is going to be a little bit better for flowering crops and some medicinal crops that are out there. If you have more questions, you can take a look at the link below on that. And also, again, call the tech team and get their advice on it. They do this every single day with people all over the country. For some of you that live in super high wind areas, or maybe your hoop house is in an area that really gets beat up, we do have 8 mil and 11 mil solar rig. That's a woven poly. It's a little bit more opaque. It's really designed for environments that are going to take a big beating. We're talking about category 7 type of areas. Think about the coast of Florida. Think about any place that's prone to a lot of hurricane damage or something like that. Call your tech team, see if that's an option for you. If there is a little bit of specialty instructions, and they'll walk you through that process. And look, we love repair tape here at Bootstrap Farmer. It's purpose built. The adhesive is perfect for it. It's designed to work with greenhouse plastic, but I know a lot of you have used other things in the past to fix your greenhouse plastic. Reading the comments from other farmers and their experiences is a great way for us to all share the knowledge. So please let us know what worked for you in the past, or even some of your high wear areas in your greenhouse that you've maybe had to replace time and time again. So we've been getting a lot of traction on YouTube here lately, and it's because of you watching, commenting, and kind of giving us some encouragement. So we really appreciate you watching. Again, the comments help. The likes, the subscribes, they all help. And again, it's not just us. It's the whole entire customer service team that's backing up this little media department that we have going. So please give them some love. And if you have some additional questions that you really want to talk to somebody one-on-one, hey, we've said it once, we're going to say it 100 times. We answer the phone 7 days a week here at Bootstrap Farmer with people that live, breathe this every single day, and they're here for you. So please give us a call. We'll be happy to help. And hey, going back to that confession on I never took pictures of the brittleness or the yellowing, in case you want to know how that happens over time and how greenhouse plastic is made to protect itself and the plants from ultraviolet radiation coming in from the sun, we just released a video that kind of nerdily gets into that, and I'm very proud of that video because it really shows you the thing that you can't see, which is that spectrum that is being put out by the sun that does eventually deteriorate all plastics and a lot of materials out there. But we also show how greenhouse plastic is built and how it actually withstands some of that UV radiation, and how a little bit of that UV radiation coming in actually helps the plants and makes them stronger. So take a look at those and other videos by clicking these 2 boxes that we're talking about on the screen right now, and we'll see you on the next one.